Hello and welcome to Let's Blend episode 3, where we're texturing the shield. This video is going to be a long one because texturing is by far the most difficult of things when making models. If you do not know what texturing is, basically it's adding an image to the surface of a mesh so it has colour and detail, etc. Not just a dull grey colour it would be without one. We'll be learning to use the brush tool in Blender, which will make us a diffuse map, making texturing a whole lot easier for us. Next episode is when we generate normal and specular maps from the texture using a handy program called Crazy Bump. Don't worry if you don't know what they are yet, I'll tell you in the next video. Anyway, let's dive into Blender and get started. Okay, this is what we left off with from last episode. We've got our shield unwrapped, just you can see it on the right there. So as I say, we are texturing it this episode. First we need to make the image that the texture will go on, so the actual texture. So we'll call this shield 1024, want a high resolution, and by default it's black because we haven't painted anything on. So we're going to take it into texture paint, and I'll be showing you the brush tool. We can choose from any colour, the lightness, darkness. We can change the strength, the radius of the brush. So yeah, we just literally paint it on and it'll appear on our texture on the right here. It's a pretty neat tool actually. Obviously we're not painting it pink, just an example. Wouldn't want you getting worried. Undo that. So we are going to, instead of a colour on the brush, we're gonna make an image. So we're literally painting an image on. Open. I'll provide a link to the textures in the description. They are Creative Commons, so don't worry about copyright or anything like that. And we've got wooden planks. We're going to use that for the two faces of the shield. We're going to use an iron texture for the rim and the other parts. We're going to make it slightly darker because we can actually modify the colour of the image we've put in as well. F lets us scale it up. And we're in top view. We're just going to click and paint it on, but there's a problem. We can't really mask off the other parts of the model, so we're painting on the parts we don't want as well as the parts we do want. So what we're going to have to do is make these separate objects so that the paintbrush doesn't affect them, because the part we've just painted is meant to be metal, not wood. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to select the separate parts and hit P to separate the selection into a different model. And then once we've painted all the parts, we're going to hit Ctrl J in object mode to join them back together into one mesh. Selecting the metal dome, P, separate. And we're just going through the other parts and doing the same thing. Front face, separate. Back face, separate. Actually no, we'll keep the front and the back face together since they're going to have the same texture. And the handle. Then we'll leave the edge of the shield, because that's the only part left. L to select the link vertices and separate. Now we can paint them and you'll see what we've just done. Select the faces that we want the wood texture to go on. Just checking that we have separated the mesh properly. So as you can see, they're completely different objects. And now we're going to paint them, and you'll see the texture appear on the right in real time. Same as before, except you'll see the difference. Look on the right, the middle part has been missed out completely, which is what we want. And we're just going to do the other side. Exactly the same, so they match up correctly. And there we go. Next we are going to swap the texture for an iron texture, which again is Creative Commons and will be in the description. I got these textures off OpenGameOut, by the way. And we're gonna paint this part. Scale the brush down. And paint it. I think I want it a bit lighter than that to contrast with the wood. That's nice. And you can see it's appeared on the right and hasn't interrupted the other texture. Now we're just gonna paint the other metal parts and then we'll be done. I'm just moving it above so I can get the brush on the different parts without the other objects obscuring it. I'll move it back in place after, of course. We're in side view and we're just using 4 and 6 on the numpad to move the camera left and right so it's nice and equal distance, and the text will be the same size that way. So we're just going around painting with the iron texture. On the right you can see some weird spikes coming out of the texture. I don't really know what that is. It must just be some weird artifact made by a glitch in the program, but it shouldn't be too much trouble for us. It's quite strange that. Doing the other side. nice and quick. And obviously the inside, nearly forgot that. I'm just using freehand with the middle mouse button to move the camera around. As you can see, the brush tool is really quite useful. It saves you a lot of time when you're texturing a model, because instead of working out the shapes and cutting and pasting and all that stuff, literally just brush it on in the program itself rather than editing it externally. You can do that, obviously. There's an option you can edit it then bring it back into Blender, but I find it's easier to do it this way. The last part, the handle, again moving it up out of the way. I'm just pressing GZ1. I'm not just moving it up randomly because I want it to be in the same spot. So when I move it back, it'll just be GZ -1. G for grab. And obviously Z the axis, you can choose that. The default units in Blender are meters, in case you wanted to know. Little spot left, just get that quickly with the brush, and we are finished, I think. Yeah, move it back into place. Now we've got the texture made, we need to apply it to the model. We haven't actually applied it to the model, we've just painted it. So on the slider here, before I forget, we need to join all the parts together. That's vital, I almost forgot to do that. Make it one mesh again, because we separated it, remember? So shift selecting all the parts, just move it to make sure I've got everything, Control J to join it back into one mesh. Now we can apply the material. There's a whole bunch of options you can choose for the material of an object. You can choose the intensity of the diffuse, if that makes sense. So how much influence the texture has on it. The specularity, so how shiny it is. What colour it reflects. Just have it like a grey colour. Don't want it too shiny. And now we're gonna apply the texture we've just made to the object. Choose image or movie. It's already a data block in Blender, so we can just click on that and then choose the texture. Now we unwrap the shape using UV coordinates, so we need to choose them as UV. Generated is if you haven't unwrapped it and you just want to quickly apply one texture to the whole thing. That's obviously not what we're looking for. and we're gonna take a render to have a look at all our hard work. Move the camera into position, 0 on the numpad to look through the camera, moving it closer so we get a good size in the render. And we need to add a lamp, otherwise it'll be pitch black. We need some source of light. Hemi. There's different types of lamps you can choose from. I'm not going to go through them right now, it's a bit complicated, but Hemi is right for what we're doing. And F12 to render. That's not bad actually. Quite pleased with that. And we'll just see what it looks like underneath as well. Rotate 180. Render again. And that's the back. Now you might be thinking it looks a bit flat. Well, that's because we haven't made a normal map, and what that basically is, it makes a flat face look like it has bumps in it. And we're going to use a program called Crazy Bump, which will easily generate us a normal map just from this text we've just made. Normally you'd have to model the high-res version, so that is actually physically having all the bumps in it, and then rendering a normal map. But for quickness, we're just going to convert this straight into a normal map in the next episode. And this is vital, you must save the texture. The data block is in Blender, but you need to actually save the texture. You can either do that by saving it as an image, or you can pack it into the Blender file. Yeah, make sure you subscribe and like. Bye.